Let's talk about the 15-inch. I think that's one that you've really enjoyed using recently. How have you found that coil on the Equinox as far as, you know, sensitivity and depth goes?
Well, it's done pretty well for me on the beach. So I've got a little collection of stuff from.
I think one of mine's in there, Sean. You have to.
Yeah, there you go. I knew you posted something on ring finders. But yeah, so it does great on the beach. I love it on the beach because, again, it's a perfect coil for the beach. It's deeper than the stock 15-inch for the NOX.
Yeah, and that's mainly because it's a round coil.
It's a round coil,
yeah,
correct.
When you've got a true round coil, it will go deeper than an elliptical. So you're both 15-inch in length, but the elliptical shape just narrows that field down a little bit. When you've got a true round coil, you'll get a bit extra depth for those that need to know.
So I've definitely noticed the extra depth on that coil. Love it. And then also with regards to working open areas, I've worked some construction sites with this coil after going over it with some other size coils, and just phenomenal. You know, picked up so the other coils missed. And as well as going out to the UK and using it in some of the farm fields, if it's somewhat flat, that's something that I'll use to cover some ground and try and hone in on those targets.
And that's really important in regards to knowing the right ground for the coil type that you want to use. Obviously, the 15-inch, like you said, open ground. What about if you're sort of in a park situation, but everything's quite shallow? Would you still use that coil?
Yeah, I would use, one thing, and I discussed this with you earlier. There's, you can buy a detector and you've got your stock coil and your stock equipment, but once you realize that, these different size coils, they're a game changer. And so, as you just said, everything, every coil's got its place. And I would bet if I had an area that I was recovering something, let's say with a stock coil, then I would go and I would rework those areas with the 15-inch round, get whatever I could out of there, dig every target that you can get out of there, and then go back over that same area with the elliptical 10x5 coil. And I believe, most of the people will be blown away with regards to some of the targets they recovered out of areas they thought were worked out.
Yeah, it's the old saying, really, that we've always said here at Coiltek is not one coil type will do everything. That's why there is a multitude of coils out there for many different detectors. Having, at least 2 or 3 in your kit, hell, why not buy all the Coilteks for your kit? But, having a few of them in your kit so you're able to pick and choose the ones that you want to use at a certain time, because you might pull up to an area and go, well, I really feel like hunting with this today because I've already used that, so it can make a big difference.
Well, my favorite sayings is, what's the definition of insanity? And that's doing something over and over again, expecting a different result. If you go and you approach things differently, whether you're in the UK, you're on the beach, or you're, if you approach, you've got a situation, you found a target, you've done your due diligence, you've done your research, you've gone to the area, you've found targets. Well, if you found targets, then that just warrants having a different approach. And if you start thinking that way, you're going to get results. And that's part of the, approaches that I try to do, is not have I try to think out of the box and try to think, okay, what else can I do? Okay, I believe this site's worked out. Well, what other approach can I do to see if there's anything else in there? And I've been pleasantly surprised by using different approaches, and those coils, different size coils, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, that's certainly a big part of it. So how do you find pinpointing with the 15-inch? Obviously you're quite experienced, so you've got your method down pat, but for those that are looking to maybe get a 15-inch or have just got one and they're trying to learn that pinpointing method, what sort of advice can you give them?
Well, the pinpointing, let's say if you're having a hard time pinpointing the target, back off from the target and go very slow. And when you first get the the tip of the coil is going to pick up that target. You know, okay, it's right in front of that coil. Then go over it, have it where you believe it's in the center, then do a 90, stand at it, and come out and do a 90 degree. And wherever that signal's going from both angles, that's going to be the middle part of, that's where the target's going to be. And that's the approach that I use. And sometimes, you know, you're going to have difficulty, especially if there's more than one target in the ground. So you know, my favorite trick is just to back off, start over, and then once I hear that target right at the tip of the, right in front of that coil, I know that target's right there, and then I'll go and have it in the middle of the coil and then do a 90, and it's usually
like a crosshairs method, isn't it? That's
yes,
what we
sir.
sort of call your crosshairs to get that pinpointing accuracy.
I always do that. That's my routine. And so once I get the target, I'll do it, and then I do it at a 90, and I know it's right in the middle.
Yeah.
And that I think is an important thing to discuss is swing speed.
Swing speed, yeah. So yeah, how do you find, do you change per coil size as well, or do you normally swing the same?
Definitely no. I mean, I think as you're using a smaller coil, people tend to speed up their swing speed when it should be just the opposite. And especially if that one side I was describing with regards to getting the 7 hammered coins out of there, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just a slow, give that machine and that coil time to pick up and analyze those targets. And if you do that, you're going to get more treasure out of that ground. And it's the same with the larger coil. You know, you can't really swing it that fast because it's a larger coil, but you want to have a nice, even, you know, swing speed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know, sometimes you zone out and you're thinking all of a sudden you're not focusing on your swing speed, but you could be missing targets if you're not doing it.
Yeah, and so what are you listening for when you're using, you know, one of the Coiltek coils in regards to listening for that good target in amongst the trash, or, you know, is there a certain sort of number you're looking for or tone? How do you sort of identify that sort of sweet signal?
My feeling with regards to, I like to hunt, you know, with a tool between my 2 ears. So I go from sound first. I like hunting with the NOX. One of the best features I found with the NOX is the all metal mode. So I love listening to the iron. I love listening to everything. And then what I'll do is I'll lower that volume, the first bend for the iron, I'll lower that volume down so where you can just barely hear the iron, and all the other non-ferrous targets will pop out. But what I like to do is I like to hear all of the targets and do just a slow, methodical pace on that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, everyone has a little bit different techniques that works for them. There's not one exact way that everyone should be doing it. It's really just get comfortable with the product, learn the coils, and then learn the machine, and then just get out there and just swing it. The more ground you process, the more targets you're inevitably going to have under that coil to dig out.
Yeah, and what I was saying, what you were saying earlier, and I apologize. So the way I hunt is I go by tone. I like to, you know, I'll listen, because if you've got a target that's deep and the detector can't really make it out, your VDI numbers are not going to be stable. All you're going to get is the tone. And it may just be a break in the threshold, or just be a little tiny, you can just barely make out that tone.
Little bleep.
Threshold, just a little bleep. But that's just out of the detector's range, but it's still telling you it's there, but those VDI numbers are not going to be stable. So one thing I do is, again, I do the 90. If I get a signal going one way and I get it going at a 90 degree, I'll dig it. If it beeps, I dig it. And because I don't rely on VDI numbers, because again, that's a second, and they're nice. If the target's shallow, those VDI numbers are going to be stable and they'll be consistent. But if they're deep and they're in heavy iron, the VDI numbers are not going to be accurate. Yeah. So it's mainly by the tone is how I hunt the sound.
With the Coiltek coils, have you found that the number representations have been okay? Like you haven't seen any deviation from the standard coils? you know, we do program these the same, but just so people understand out there that they are. How have you found the way that they relate on the VDI?
You know, the VDI numbers are consistent. But what some people don't realize is, let's say if you're hunting in park and then you go from park to field one, let's say park one to field one, the numbers, the VDI numbers are off by 1 or 2.
Right.
So it could be the same exact target, but you're in a different hunting mode. The VDI numbers are not going to be exactly the same in each detecting mode on the NOX.
Yeah. So that's more like a detector, you know, situation rather than a coil situation.
It's also the frequencies, just the weighted frequencies, and they dictate how it interprets the target and therefore pops up the VDI number on them. But I've found the numbers to be very stable with the Coiltek coils. I haven't had a problem with them jumping around. And again, with any coil, if the target's out of detection range and it's barely picking it up, the VDI numbers will not be consistent.
So if you were going to take your Equinox to maybe, you know, the gold areas, what sort of coil would you use for that if you were going to, you know, chuck it in gold mode?
I would use a smaller coil.
Yeah.
So I would use the elliptical 10x5 coil. Again, you've got that ground coverage. I have not been out in the gold fields with the Equinox. I've had a few friends and they've given me some good feedback on it, but most of them have been using the smaller coils and they're working them in tailing piles. Again, the ground mineralization in the gold fields is so much, you know, it's content is different, but you're gonna have more ground noise in the gold fields versus, let's say, hunting the beach.
Yeah.
Or a park. So it's a totally different scenario, but I am super impressed with the Equinox because it's the first all-around detector that has a true prospecting mode. I mean, those frequencies are weighted for prospecting and finding gold. Do I see using a bigger coil with the Equinox in the gold fields? In my experience, probably not. And maybe I would do the 11. But
we have had a few 14x9 users that have had the 14x9s in Australia here in Victoria that have done, you know, somewhat successfully, but most of them are, like you said, the 10x5, especially if you do go to a prospecting area that might have a bit extra trash in it too. They're good to, you know, work over where the old timers have been, and, you know, there'd still be gold in that area. So it'd be good to use, like you said, the 10x5 is really good to get the targets in amongst the trash.
And up in Northern California, where we do a lot of sniping and going through bedrock, you've got the streams and you've got a lot of bedrock and the terrain is very uneven. So you need a smaller coil where you can get into those cracks where the gold's been deposited. And also up in some hydraulicing areas too. You know, the terrain is somewhat tight. So you need a 14x9 or a 10x5 coil to get into areas that the other coils couldn't get, you know, couldn't get in to fit.
No, that's right. The coils are, again, it just proves that having another coil type in your kit will help you get more targets when you're out in the field. You can choose what you need to use at the right time, and, you know, knowing what sort of targets you're after too, because if they're larger coins or, you know, if you're after tiny little things, you can choose the right coil for the right job. So, you know, the larger targets will see deep, the larger coils, will see deeper, and the smaller coils will see shallower, but they're more sensitive to the smaller targets as well. Have you had any really small stuff on the beach, like little earrings or anything like that with the 10x5?
Yeah, I have found some small earring posts. And again, I have found them with the smaller coil, the 10x5. It's a phenomenal coil. I mean, it seems to be, and I don't want to play favorites, but it seems to be my go-to with regards to, in a lot of situations. It's one of those things, I never leave home without it. It's always with me because it's something I can use in so many different situations versus a larger coil where I'm somewhat limited in where I can use it. So, you know, basically how I prospect new areas, I'll prospect it with the stock coil, find the area, and then once I've found the area and I'm started retrieving targets, that's when I start going into my toolkit in getting different size coils and doing different approaches to those areas. And, you know, I've been quite successful with that type of system. And
yeah, it's really good to
everybody should have
maximize
at
the
least
target
one extra
retrieval.
coil.
What was that, sorry?
I said, I believe everybody should have 1 or 2 coils in their arsenal besides a stock coil. So it gives them that versatility. So you can, you know, get into those areas and those conditions that other people can't get into.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that 100%, especially the 10x5 Coiltek. Everyone needs one. So go and get one.